Yeah.
Steven, what speaks to you more? Is this the know-it-alls? Let's talk about the brains tribe first.
I think so. And, as I was saying to you earlier, I actually am responsible for one of the brains this season.
Yes,
helped.
you are Joe Del Campo's grandson, right?
Yeah, exactly. I got Joe Cast. No, I got Liz Markham Cast.
Look at you.
It's a great story. I met Liz on OkCupid. We dated.
Wow.
Yes, and I saw her profile on OkCupid, and I was like, this girl is... If it doesn't work out as a date, I've got to get her on Survivor because she's so perfect for Survivor. So we went out a couple of times and had a great time, but it didn't obviously work out. And I was like, all right, great. Like let's send you to casting. And I can thank Liz actually for my current relationship because she was the one who said on OkCupid, listen, you gotta sort people by percentage match, rather than just like
she's a quantitative strategist.
Exactly. She knows that the algorithm is the secret to love, and that's how I found my current girlfriend. So it's I got a Liz to thank, and yeah.
Well, I became a huge fan of Survivor after Survivor China. I had a good close friend of mine that was on the show, Jamie Dugan at the time.
Right.
And I just, after watching it, I just always loved it and thought that I would do well on the show. And she ended up giving some of my information to the recruiters at CBS and went out there, auditioned, made the tape, and for some reason they liked me. So
a lot of people don't know how significant you are in the Survivor world, because without Boo, there would be no two-time fan favorite James. Big boy, James Clements.
In a row, back
there
to
would
back.
be no two-time fan favorite Russell Hantz. There would be no
In a row,
two-time
back to back.
There would be no two-time quitter Colton. So who else? There was somebody else. Who we missing?
Shannon.
Oh,
A blip.
Shannon.
Shannon's a blip.
Shannon could have been huge in
He
that
could
game.
have been huge. Yes.
Huge.
If he had kept his mouth shut.
I feel
Well,
like we're missing
Brandon
somebody.
was like a
Brandon,
spin-off.
okay. So
Brandon's
we
a
got
spin-off.
Brandon, two-time player, Brandon.
But that was more you.
Yeah,
that was
but
more
yeah, but
you, you know?
if Brandon wouldn't have been there, we would have never had flipped off. We would have never had Willie
Right, no,
headbutting
in
on
all
Big
fairness,
Brother.
but I
We would
had
have
a-
never
I
had
had a
all that
hand
wouldn't have
in-
happened.
How did you get into Survivor, and what made you apply?
Yeah, so I was underage at a bar in San Francisco. I had a fake
Oh.
ID from like the time I was like 17. And I was out and I was with a friend who was friends with Matt Quinlan, who had been on a previous season of Survivor. He never made it very far, but he had brought Colton Cumby, who was like a very infamous player on Survivor, and him and I sort of hit it off that night, and he was telling me that he thinks that I would be perfect for the show. We exchanged numbers, and I guess he passed my information along because that Monday I got a call from casting, and they just said, hey, do you want to fly out to LA next week? We want to interview you. And I did the whole week-long process that I'm sure you probably did as well, where we were like sequestered in a hotel room and did a bunch of interviews, and it was a very interesting experience. Got to meet Jeff Probst, which I thought was so fun. And that's how I made it. It was like from the beginning of getting that first call to actually flying out, it was about a year and a half. So I was supposed to be on the season before Cagayan, and they bumped me, and I was ready to go. And about 2 weeks before, they're like, sorry, it's actually not going to happen. And and at that point, I didn't know if that meant that just no thank you, we don't want you on Survivor, or next season. They didn't really tell me. So I was supposed to film, I think, April of 2013, and then I ended up on Cagayan, which I think we flew out like 4th of July of 2013 to head to the Philippines.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So let's pick up the story. You make your video in Vegas.
Make my video in
You
Vegas.
never told us, by the way. This blonde who you swiped with.
This blonde was Ali Povitz.
Okay,
Right.
you don't know at the time, but
At this
Ali.
point, I had no idea she was an ex-Survivor contestant. And, I was like, holy shit, this girl has like the best pickup line ever.
Yeah.
There is no better pickup line than, hey, you want to be on TV? Let's meet up for a drink.
Before the pandemic, the casting producers would call me quite often to say, again, they're looking for puzzles to make this puzzle. And they're very specific, like, hey, we need a Black Ivy Leaguer who's a lawyer. Okay, and because my network in New York and just what I'm a part of, or we need a fresh college grad who did this, that, and the other. And so I was able to help X amount of people get on the show,
Okay.
Listen, I can get you to this point, but when it comes to LA casting, you got to turn it on. Like, I can't be in the room with you, and so forth. And so there's another Jeremy that I got. He's a good friend of mine.
Oh yes, I think I know who you're on about from David versus Goliath. Was that the one? Was that the season?
I forget the seasons.
Yeah.
Jeremy Crawford is his name. And and a few others. So I was excited for them just to have the opportunity, because I said, listen, guys, even if you don't win or finish in the top 3 or 2, I said, it is an experience that only a few people around the world have. And you should take it. You're going to learn so much about yourself if you get cast.
I went to Northwestern, and at Northwestern, I took Max Dawson taught a class on Survivor in which he split the class into tribes, and Max was on the show. He played in Worlds Apart, and I went to the Worlds Apart premiere party, met one of the casting agents there, and Dawson was very passionate about the fact that he thought I'd be good for the show. So I owe a lot to him, and just for being a big old Survivor nerd for a long time.
This isn't a secret, but I feel bad saying it. I haven't watched the show since I worked for them, which we did casting on, I think, season 9. What was season 9?
Vanuatu.
Yeah, we did casting on Vanuatu. And when you work in reality casting, at least when you worked in reality casting then, like the way you kept your job was the more people that the network ended up choosing for the show that you had recruited, like the more likely you were to keep your job in casting. And so on Vanuatu, 5 of the 16 people, or I don't remember 16 or 18, but 5 of the people had been my contestants. And so I was like hugely proud of all of them and really excited about the season. And my favorite contestant of the contestants that I had screened or picked, quote unquote, was the guy who got kicked off first, Brooke Garrity.
Yes.
And he was this massive fan of the show, and he was such a good interview and so dynamic and so charismatic. I thought he was going to win, right? And he got on the show and he got voted off first, and I felt like such a jerk. Like I knew how excited he was to go, and I just felt like I'd been complicit in kind of wrecking this guy's dream. I really felt shitty.
I have been Team Survivor from the very first season. I applied to all 3. I have given them people. I have helped people with their apps and their videos. 2 of the people that I gave them ended up making the show. I had at least 5 that made finals that I essentially recruited, if you will, and helped them along the way. And they went deep. And Chris Noble and Chris Hammonds are the 2 Chris's that I helped, in the background, just do my thing. I pitched Chris Hammonds at the fundraiser down in Florida before it just recently changed its name. Whatever the big one is.
Yeah, it used to be Hearts of Reality.
Yeah, Hearts of Reality. That's it. So
I
I was at Hearts of Reality, and I was actually at a law conference with Chris Hammonds. And the very last day after this 3-week retreat conference, he came up to me and said, I knew exactly who you were when you walked into the big barn, which was this big barn, and like 50-something attorneys are there. But he waited for 3 weeks and cornered me on this deck for the group photo and says, I'm this huge Survivor fan, blah, blah, blah. I've applied. I've never gotten a sniff, blah, 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 blah. Literally, I leave that retreat. I'm home for 3 days, and I'm down in Florida. And instead of seating us by last name, they seat us by first name. So I sit right next to Jody. And I pull out my phone, and I pitch Chris to Jody. And and I waited like an hour before I pitched him. And then she was like thirsty. And I said, hey, I am too. I really wasn't. And then I said, I'm going to run to Starbucks. I really wasn't, but now I'm going to go if you want me to. And she was like, I want whatever, green tea or whatever. And I leave the autograph line, run. I mean, this thing's like, I don't know, a half a mile away, book all the way down there. I get this drink and I run all the way back. Sweaty mess. It's Florida. You know what that's like. So I sit down and I've got the drink, and so then I, pitched him. And she was like, I don't know. And so I texted him like, hey, send me some more photos. Give me more material to work with. And then like a month later, she said, I want to take another look at your friend. And I was like, okay, dude. I was on the phone. He was at a deposition somewhere at an airport. And I said, okay. And he answered. I said, I didn't tell you I did this, but I pitched you and they want a video from you. And and he ate a piece of dog shit on the video.
He did?
That. Yeah. He didn't tell me he was going to do. He didn't tell me he was going to do that. So we did the app and we did the video, and I was like, okay, we got to zhuzh it up. Like you need a little bit. You need like something like that grabs him by the throat and do it. And he's like, okay, I got it. And then he sends it to me, and I was like, oh my god. I'm like, well, either you're on the show or they'll ban you from ever applying.
Holy shit, dude!
He's
That's
like,
that's gnarly.
He's like, yeah, this is my dog, this isn't shit, and this is me eating his shit. Like, that was it.